Hey guys, it's Jacolia of Jacolia Gems. Thank you for once again coming back to my channel. Now, if you could do me a favor, pause the video, like it, leave a comment, share this on your social media platform, in your text messages, and if you have not already done so, subscribe. So today for a video, what I am going to talk kind of in depth about, we'll see how far I'll go with it, is about submission. Now, if you are new to my channel, the type of videos that I make are very holistic from an Afro-Asiatic, Semitic, Bantu, West African, Israelite, Negro, Black, Afro-Asiatic biblical standpoint. At some point or another, while I'm talking, I'm going to drop a Bible verse. I'm going to teach on something historical. I'm going to talk about something. I'm going to drop some type of facts. It's just how I tackle things. I also believe in tackling subject in a manner that can cover a multiplicity of areas. What I do not do most of the time is really share my stance or how I feel. I make these videos to start conversations. Sometimes I will say how I feel. Other times it will be assumed how I feel because of the stance or the passion that I happen to speak in. With that being said, today we are going to talk about submission. We are going to talk about submission from a biblical aspect. We're going to talk about submission from an African aspect. We're going to talk about the role of a woman from a biblical and African aspect. We're going to talk about the feminist movement, women's rights. We're going to talk about the construct and the structure puts and the difference between male and female. We're going to get into a lot of these things. We're going to find out if submission is some foreign thing to Black women, or is this something that was created to keep the woman behind? We're going to talk on today. This video may be a little long. Some of you guys prefer the shorter videos. The others of you like to eat in depth. So with that being said, let's get into today. So we know that submission is something that's talked about a lot these days. And a lot of people hate the word submission for one point, one reason or another. I believe that the word submission is hated a lot for the simple fact of we're looking at it from a Eurocentric standpoint. I believe the word submission is hated a lot because of what it is that we have seen of examples of men and women that come before us. Those are just a few reasons why I believe that this word is hated so much. So the word submission literally is a word that can be substituted for the word meek, humble, easily imposed upon, polite. So when we look at the word meek, that's the word that we're actually going to look into, because we see the word meek in the Bible more times than we see the word submission. And so, since I'm going to be using some scriptures, we're going to define the word meek. So the word meek can also mean quiet, gentle, and easily imposed on, submissive. Similar words are patient, long-suffering, forbearing, resigned. Once again, gentle, quiet, shy. And so I know some people may be like, well, if you're easily imposed upon, that means that you have to have some type of naivety about you, that you are easily controlled and you're easily manipulated. Submissive means ready to conform to the authority or the will of others, meekly obedient or passive. See, what it is that we have to realize is that this is talking about authority or the will of others. The only time someone's will should be in an authoritative status over you is because you have given them that will. So when we talk about submission, let's see what the scripture says. Because when we talk about the word submission and people talk and people say that submission is slavery and that submission means that a woman loses her voice and loses her will and loses her way, then that is something that shows me that we do not truly not only know the English version of what these words mean, but clearly we aren't even aware of what the scripture it is that we're quoting, that we say that we believe in. And for people who say they don't believe Bible constructs, that's very interesting to me that these conversations come up. So I'm going to share my screen so that you guys can see the book of Ephesians, the 5th chapter, verse 22 through 23. And it reads as such: Wives, submit yourself unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, and as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives even unto Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it, that he may sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of the water by the word, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but it shall be holy and without blemish. So ought men to love their wives as their own body. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. For no man ever yet hateth his own flesh, but nourisheth and cherisheth it, even as the Lord of the church. For we are members of the body, of his flesh, and of his bones. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they shall be two flesh. This is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church. Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife even as himself, and the wife see that she reverences her husband. Let's see what the word reverence means. So we see also that this is talking about marriage, reverence. Well, this is in reference or a petition or a citation. So let's just see what it means. Reverence, the action of mentioning or leading to something, the source of information in order to ascertain something, to provide, to refer. And so we know that this is also a synonym for respect, a synonym for honor. And when a man is placed in a position of authority by a woman, then he is due the honor and the respect. The problem comes in at, and this is going to be like so many different videos, so I'm not going to hit this and move on from it. The problem comes in that with Black people is the fact that we have started to date versus court. We have started to just have casual sex versus having dowries versus our fathers vetting these men out versus our brothers vetting these men out, so on and so forth. So then we end up with men whom have not earned our hearts properly, but because they look good and they felt good and they smelled good, and because they had money, or some of you may be like, well, no, I built him from the ground up. Well, you wanted a project. You wanted somebody that you can control, somebody that you can manipulate, somebody that you can say he won't be able to leave me because I invested in him. Whatever situation it is that we have entered into as Black women that have changed the mindset of a lot of Black women to feel as if they don't owe a man respect and submission, it's because you gave respect and submission to men that were not your husbands. So now you feel as if no man deserves this. And this is something that we have to own on our own. Yeah, men out here mess up, but it's because you're submitting to men whom have not given you their name. There are things that I did in my last relationship that I never did before. And I sat back and I'm like, girl, you are breaking all of your own rules. That's on me. I believe in a man being able to see that a woman has submissive qualities, that a woman will cook, she will clean, she provides for her home, she teaches her children if she has them already, that her mind is a mind that has many, many ideas that she can carry out, that she can take a seed and that she can replicate it and duplicate it, and that she can maximize potential. I believe that a man should be watching if a woman is apologetic and if she's accountable and if she doesn't mind putting her hands to the grain, that a woman doesn't mind apologizing when she's wrong, taking responsibility and sitting down and having those tough conversations, not interrupting him or lording over him, or if she happens to slip up, because we are human, if she happens to slip up, say way, shape, form, and fashion, and I'm not talking about, calling him out his name, doing all this, doing all that, but that she humbles herself and that she could draw back. Just like I believe that a woman should be able to see how well a man manages his emotions and his finances, if he's a gentleman and he opens the doors, if he becomes a safe place for her to be vulnerable and to share of herself, for him to be a man that's trustworthy and loyal, someone that has control over their body, someone that's going to be honest about where they are. Adults need to be healed. We need to show each other these things, but the mistake we make is when we start to cook and we start to clean and we start to have sex and spend the night and get involved in a man's children's lives. That's not in our duty as a girlfriend. Just like it's not in a man's duty as a boyfriend to pay your bill and to finance your lifestyle. Now, now, I do believe in not touching any money when a man is present unless I decide to leave a tip, or if you're my man and I decide to take you out. But that's also modernized dating, because in courtship, these things don't even need to be discussed. But we are people that's in captivity, and a lot of my followers do not know what courting is, and I cannot wait to have Brother Shay Michael on to talk about courtship. But a lot of the jaundiced mindsets that women have nowadays due submission is because of their broken relationships, due to them allowing and attracting and choosing the wrong men. And this is just honesty. So, with that being said, when we look into the scripture, and I'm not going to read them all, when we think about meekness, there are so many Bible scriptures on meekness, I can't share them all. Okay, Matthew 5:5, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. To speak evil of no one, Titus 3:2. To speak evil of no one, to avoid quarreling, to be gentle, and to show perfect courtesy towards all people. See, this is something that a lot of women are seeking to get back into, seeking to be gentle, seeking to become courteous, and to not quarrel, to not bicker, to not backbite. However, there is a mass amount of women who think that this tough facade and this I know it all and I'm a boss, independent chick, and because I'm loud and I can curse, that's something that's productive towards what it is that we're supposed to be doing and building as a Black people. We think that those are traits that we should pass down to our daughters. But if we look at the example of a lot of Black women were raised by mothers who called them the B word. It's a clip that I'm going to link down below, and I like Remy Ma. I love her disposition. I'll say that in some areas. But it was something that explained her harshness to me. She said that growing up, it was normal for her grandmother to call her the B word, Ayla B, come in. And so she never understood why women would get offended when a man called her that. When I have conversations with my daughter and she talks to me about the amount of little girls who mothers call them out of their names, who abuse them and beat them, come home drunk and call them anything under the sun. We can't help but to bump heads as Black women. And if Black women are bumping heads with other Black women, then surely we're going to have a problem with the men who we blame for hurting us and causing us to be this way. Psalms 37 and 11. But the meek shall inherit the land and delight themselves in abundant peace. Matthew 11:29. Psalms 25:9. 1 Peter 22. 1 Peter 31. 1 Peter 3 and 11. I'm sorry, 1 Peter, the entire 3rd chapter. 1 Thessalonians, 1 Timothy. I'm going to link these scriptures down below. And so you see how it talks about meekness being a qualification in order for you to inherit the kingdom, in order for you to inherit the earth, in order for you to be the gods that Black women claim to be. You know, we're on this big surge in the self-identity movement. We're really on it into our Afro-Asiatic, our West African Israelite heritage as Negro women. But we cannot be gods of light spewing out hate. Yeah, Ma, you a God, but who's conducting your strings? Who's pulling the strings? Because if you lack meekness and if you lack humility, just because you have a man does not mean that that relationship is sanctioned before the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So let's continue with some examples of some women in the Bible so that we can see, because you know a lot of people gonna say, oh, that Bible is suppression, that Bible can't teach me nothing, that Bible is a white man's book and a white man wrote it, and that Bible hate women, and I can't believe you referring to the Bible, girl, we know you know, like all of this stuff, right? But it's that same Bible that gave these women these principles that men should provide and that men should protect and that men should give and men should honor and that men should have money and infrastructure. Women selectively obey the Bible. So let's talk about Deborah. And I'm going to kind of speed through these. Deborah was a prophet and a judge. And Deborah actually led the Israelites to war. And I'm going to link this down below. You can find this in Judges, the 4th chapter. And Deborah held the highest office in Israel in that time of the judges, which was to be a judge. She was the 4th judge of the pre-monarch Israel. This was before the kings. This was before David and Solomon and Jeroboam and Rehoboam, because the Most High sanctioned out his judges to be as gods in place of the earth. And it was never his plan for us to have kings and to have queens like the other nations. And so there were men that were present. And Deborah was also a married woman. But because she was the one who the Most High had his hand on at that time to lead his people, Barak would not go to war without Deborah. That's just one woman. We're going to go into another woman so that we can see that even with husbands present, even in this Bible, that femininity, the feminist movement was never needed amongst Black people because we had roles in our homes. We had roles in our kingdom. That wasn't our fight, and that's not our fight today. So let's talk about Miriam, the sister of Aaron and Moses. She's called prophetess before Moses ever was. She leads the Israelites in the song as Pharaoh and his army are crossing over the Red Sea. She's the woman that will lead out in the praise and the worship with the tamarines. This is a powerful woman, and clearly there were men present. Her brothers are two of the biggest patriarchs of the Israelites in the Bible. But even with them present, her name was mentioned for a reason. And she wasn't bucking up against them for power. She disapproved of a wife. She wasn't struggling for power. Why? Because she knew her role. Let's talk about Jael. Jael was a woman of strategy. She is looked at as a heroine in the Bible. She delivered Israel from the army of Jabin of Canaan. And so after Barak failed to take action, like the prophetess Deborah commanded, God turned over Sisera over to Jael, who killed him by driving a tent peg through his skull after he entered her tent. So this was two women, okay? And she had a husband as well. She wasn't in a struggle for power, and she knew how to protect herself and deliver her people from harm and danger. And unfortunately, Barak didn't do what was needed to be done, but she was present. There's also some queen mothers in the Bible. You also have an example of Hadassah, who was Esther. And Esther was known in the Persian captivity. She went in under the guideship of her cousin Mordecai when the Israelites were in captivity. And this is where Purim came in, and a lot of the Zoroastrianism, a lot of that came in around Second Temple Judaism as well, but that's something that you can reach and study. Then we have Athaliah. So she was a queen mother in the Bible. She was not the only queen mother. And queen mothers, actually, this is what I'm going to show you. Queen mothers are very, very, very important in Hebraic and West African culture till this day. Till this day. And I'm going to show you. The queen mother in Israel had a powerful influence in the kingdom. This power and authority flows from her status as Gibariah, queen mother, and not from her as a person. In Israel, the queen mother preceded her son in existence. Sometimes she would rule in his stead. And that was the queen that I was showing you, Athaliah. She ruled in the stead of her son. I'm going to link all of these women down below. And then you had the queen. She was actually the daughter of Jezebel and Ahab. Jezebel was a Canaanite wife, and the Most High forbade our men to take women of other nations, but they did anyway. And Ahab was a king that felt acceptable to Jezebel, who was a worshiper of Baal. So we're going to look into the queen mothers in Africa. In traditional Ghana, the title of Queen Mother relays a rank of authority within a community. Queen mothers are responsible for designating the next chief, providing wise counsel of the chief and his elders, rallying all women together, and keeping an eye on the social conditions within society. So, Ghana, the Ashanti are known Israelites from Acon, tribe of Judah, people of smoke. Their oral tradition, their golden stool, which greatly mimics the Ark of the Covenant. They have their staffs, which look just like the poles that were giving out to the head of each house, the same type of rod that Aaron had, that we often call Moses's rod. They do 8th day circumcision. Their oral traditions say that they are the Israelites of the Most High God. So I'm basically stretching out the definition and of submission in conjunction with the fact that even though women submitted to the headship of their men and of their husbands in Hebraic culture, they were not without voices. They were not without roles. They were not without importance. And this is something that we have adopted, believing what it is that we have been given from a Eurocentric standpoint. And a lot of you may be like, well, what does that mean? Our fight was never what it is that we are making it up on today. Because even if you look into the female warriors in Africa who led war beyond the Bible, you have Queen Amani Renas, and this was a Nubian queen in modern Sudan, and this was a kingdom of Kush, so there was a Kushite, Hamitic, ruling in Egypt, and we know that the Sudan was originally populated by the Afro-Asiatic Kushites of like Cushitic Arabic descent. Then you have Queen Mzinga Mandi. She ruled as well. With growing demand for slave labor, Portugal had established a colony near where the land to expand the slave trade. And so she became queen after her brother. This was talked about in the oral traditions of many African nations. Now, one of the most popular women over in the diaspora was Queen Nani. And so when you look at Nani, Nana, Ima, these all go back to Mesopotamia, where the woman, where the Queen of Heaven was worshipped, or even in West Africa, Mommy Water. Queen Nani was the leader of the Jamaican Maroons, a community of formerly enslaved Africans who fought the British for their freedom. She did that. The Dahomey Amazons. The Dahomey are believed to be a tribe of Dan. When you look over into Wonder Woman and the Amazonian princesses and how they're fighting, or even the African women in Black Panther that we saw, you see they were dressed as the Dahomey tribe. These are Israelite women. So why are we struggling and warring, trying to be men when we have our own roles? Why are we struggling and warring against something that does not even belong to us? When we do these things, we begin to allow other nations to see that we are easily played with, that we are easily toyed with. And so let's get to some quick history facts before I begin to close out. When we look at Black women's suffrage in comparison to white women's suffrage, we had 1 or 2 Black women attending the Women's Right to Vote conferences, 1820 to 1859. Frederick Douglass, no Black women were even invited to attend, right? But this is the Anti-Slavery Convention of American Women, an interracial meeting. But then no Black women were allowed to attend when they were talking about women's suffrage and women's rights. But Black women were not represented. But we say that this is our fight. The Voting Right Act for Black people. Actually, let's get into this just a little more. We talk about women's suffrage and women's rights. You know, since Black women believe they're equal to white women in the eyes of society. This is a Smithsonian magazine. This article is talking about the woman who challenged the idea that Black community were destined for diseases. And so a physician and activist, Rebecca J. Cole, became a leading voice in medical social services. And this was written in 2018. And so basically this female doctor, over a 30-year career span, began to specifically talk about the challenges of being a Black female and the challenges that Black women go through. And so at this time, she was only 1 of 2 women who graduated college as a doctor. And this was in the 1800s, around the same time that women were fighting for their rights to vote. So you tell me, Black woman, how do you find it to be able to fix your lips to say that this feminist movement has anything to do with you when there was only 1 Black female doctor representing you through the time that white women were fighting for their rights to vote? How does any of this, what's going on with women's rights, really like at the core of it all, affect you as a Black woman? Why is it that we entertain white aspects so much that we become diluted to the fact that every culture has their own way of believing? Submission in the Asian culture is not the same as submission in the Hispanic culture. It's not the same submission in the Negroic African culture. It's not the same in the Islamic Hebraic cultures. Not the same in Hebraic. Like, submission is not the same across cultures. In European dynasties, women really had no voices. They could not own property. It was certain things that they could not do. We did not have that problem. And we are the same women that want a high-value man. High-value men love women that know how to listen. High-value men love women that knows how to respect themselves. So I'm going to read off what type of wife high-value men look for. And I know a lot of you up on me starting to read this, you're going to say, oh, that describes me because I have my own bag. That describes me because my kids ain't never got to worry about anything. But I want you to wait to the very, very end and see if this really describes you. The epilogue, the wife of a noble character. A wife of noble character who can find. She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like merchant ships bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still night. She provides food for her family and portions for her female servants. She considered a field and buys it out of her earnings. She plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her task. She sees that her trading is profitable, and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand, she holds the distaff and grips the spittle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. When it is snow, she has no fear for her household. All of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies the merchant with sashes. She is clothed with the strength of dignity, and she can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children raise and calls her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring praise at the city of the gates. So she has to have fear of the Lord. She has to honor the Lord. She has to speak out wisdom and righteousness and holiness. She has to be meek. There are many women that I know who are married. Some are dating. And everybody's marriage and relationship are of their own, and everyone does what it is that's best for their household. It's just a conversation that I've been having with my father for about 5 to 7 years now, and I would tell him, I don't know as many submissive women as women think that they are, and this is self-included, because it takes a great chiseling away from. And just because a woman cooks and she cleans and she's nice and she's sweet and she's feminine, doesn't mean that she's submissive. Submissive means that, first of all, submission is one into another. And I'm going to link those scriptures down as well, because a woman is only to submit to her husband. Her husband becomes her Lord. Sarah called Abram Lord, according to the Apostle Paul. But even in the way that she followed him, when the Most High told him to get up and leave the Ur of Chaldean, she followed him. Abraham also had sustenance, but Sarah was also a beautiful woman. So she attracted a high value man, even though this was possibly something that was arranged because of the Hebraic culture. But when you see, it's in examples of some instances. And so when I talk to my father and I'm like, Pops, I don't know as many submissive women as they pretend. And it's because a lot of women believe because they do the things that I mentioned that makes them submissive. That just makes you a woman. Submission means that you're willing to break yourself in areas for the greater good, because a man becomes a representation of Christ in his household, and Christ became the sacrifice. So if Christ became the sacrifice, that means that we are obligated to become something as well. We are obligated to give of ourselves as women. So what are we really willing to sacrifice? So this is a story that I'm not going to read all of the scripture on, but 1 Samuel 25, because I know a lot of you women say, well, I'm not submitting to just any and everything. Well, at the end of the day, woman, if you're married to a man and he's not all he's cracked up to be, you still have to submit to him. If he's not telling you to sin, he's not telling you to break the law, statutes, and commandments, you have to listen to him. This woman, Abigail, was married to this man named Nabal, and she was called beautiful as well. The Bible is very strategic when it starts to describe some women. It lets you know that some of these women in the Bible were breathtakingly beautiful, that anyone would notice. And Abigail happened to be one of these women, but she was married to a rich, very wealthy man, but he was mean and he was cantankerous. And long story less long, the king was on his land and wanted to send him some sheep and some money, whatever. He ain't want to accept it. He was very arrogant. His response to King David wasn't having it, was going to kill him. But because his wife was in submittance to him, she caught wind of it because of the servant telling her. She ran out and fell on her face and pleaded for the life of her husband, because she was still surrendering unto him. Now, what she could have done was sit back and let the king kill her husband, because her husband caused her problems, I'm sure. But she was still under his headship. Husband ended up getting killed, and the king came back to marry her. That's not me saying stay in something that's toxic, abusive, or anything like that. That's me saying that as a black woman, you need to do better choosing. And what we have to stop doing is always blaming our exes and take some onus in the fact that because we're out of order, our life has been out of order. But in submission, there is gain. It's an easier life. And I know it's easy because a lot of black marriage has gone down. I'm going to link below some statistics and some articles and different things. Black marriage has gone down, and I know a lot of black women say it's because they're not dealing with the same stuff that their mothers and their grandmothers deal with. And I get it, I understand. I also know that it's a fact some black women are turned off from even wanting to be wives because we've witnessed a lot of men cheat. Some of us have been side chicks before. Some of us have been cheated on before. Some black women have done the cheating as black wives. And so it's like, why am I going to sign into it just to be cheated on, just to be lied to? I'm going to be honest with you. This is why polygamy was given as an allowance because a lot of our men have self control issues. So they will go around committing fornication with a single woman and humbling her. So the Most High said, you're not going to make whores out of the daughters of Zion. So he had to take her on for a second wife. That's one of the ways polygamy was brought into allowance. I just want to encourage black women to get back to your roots. Lose some of this harshness. Like we're all growing. I still got some harshness to lose, some things to chisel away at. But submission isn't a dirty word. When that man is providing for you, when he's protecting you, when he's covering you in prayer and in worship, when he's getting up and shoveling that snow, when he's throwing out the garbage and he's deflecting the world from crumbling down on you, he's submitting to you. He's doing that. He's breaking himself. He's doing that. You're still his equal when it comes to you being equal as importance. You're not just equal in authority. There are some decisions that you will make that he really has no part of because it's your house. He's providing it. I'm just quoting my father. I'm going to link that down below. So get under some women that's not bitter. Find some women that are happily married or some women who were unhappily married because of them or even because of their exes to find out why. We need to start having these conversations, but above all, let's get back to who we're supposed to be as an Afro-Asiatic black woman. This is Jacoya of Jacoya Gems. Thank you once again for coming back to view my channel. I hope that this has helped somebody somewhere. And if you don't like it, then the message is not for you. Keep going 50-50. Be happy in your long-term engagements. Because what can I say? I ain't got a man, right? I'm signing out, y'all. Like, comment, share this on your social media platforms, and subscribe.